Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton and Kevin L. Jackson with you here on Supply Chain. Now, welcome to today's live stream. Kevin, you're already loving life, and I can't even welcome everybody here, and you're ready to go. How you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm doing great. Murphy just walked through the room, and I was. That's why I'm so happy because he came and he left.
You're talking about Murphy's Law, I bet, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, we are, knock on wood, Murphy's Law, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murphy, whomever is not going to be with us here on The Buzz. So, Kevin, today, it's all about the buzz, where every Monday at 12 noon Eastern Time, we discuss a variety of news and developments across global supply chain and business. And folks, as y'all know and love, the second Tuesday of each month is the Digital Transformers edition of the Buzz, where we tend to focus a lot more on technology. And Kevin, today, not only am I joined by the one and only Kevin L. Jackson, but we're going to be joined by Anton Karnaukhov, co-founder and vice
Yes.
president of application delivery with XpertMinds, who's going to join us about 12:25 p.m. Eastern Time to talk supply chain technology and a whole lot more. Kevin, that's going to be a great show today, but great guest, right?
Yeah, I was wondering.
All right. Well, maybe it appears that the Murphys have made an appearance here today. But hey, we're going to get Kevin L. Jackson back. Sometimes we have that. It is the fun and joy of having a live show. But folks, again, about 12:25 p.m. Eastern Time, we got Anton Karnaukhov with XpertMinds joining us. So stay tuned for that. And two quick things before we get going here today. First off, hey, give us your take in the comments, right? If you're listening to the podcast replay, though, which we usually drop on Fridays, you ought to consider joining us live every single week, Mondays at 12 noon Eastern Time on YouTube or LinkedIn or some other social media channel of your choosing. We'd love to hear from you. And also, if you enjoy the show today, we'd love for you to share it with a friend and your network. So let's see if we got Kevin L. Jackson, the one and only, back with us here. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm back. I mean, I guess he walked back through. I hope it was just a second to go pick up something, but Murphy's
Yeah.
hanging around.
Well, great to have you back. Appreciate the great work you're doing here and at Digital Transformers, which is the series that folks can get wherever they get their podcast. We've been at that for a couple of years now, and I appreciate the great work you're doing there, Kevin.
Oh, no, no! I'll tell you, the audience is just amazing. We publish once a month, but they are talking all month. Our last show was just amazing. I really want to
Yes.
thank the audience for all the love they've been giving recently.
Well, Kevin, we're going to talk about that last show in just a second. So hold that thought for just a second. Speaking of our audience, they're the best in the world. Whitney is tuned in from Folsom, California. I wonder what the weather's like out in that part of the world. Whitney, great to see you here via LinkedIn. And Nadeem is back with us via LinkedIn. Hello to you, Nadeem. Let us know what part of the world you are tuned in from as well. And as our friends behind the scenes, Amanda and Catherine, thanks for all you do. As they say, happy Buzz Day. Say hello and let us know where you're watching from. We're really glad that everyone is here with us today. Okay, so Kevin, let's lead
Hmm.
off with some resources for folks. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
All right. In our first delivery, we're talking a lot of parcel. Parcel opportunities abound. And we invite folks to check out our latest newsletter, With That Said, which we released over the weekend. A few news and notes, including Kevin. I bet you knew this, but not many other people do. Did you know that 92% of all the advanced semiconductor chips around the globe are made in Taiwan? Did you know that, Kevin?
Oh yeah, and I hope the factories didn't get damaged in the recent earthquake there in Taiwan.
Well, I was reading some about that over the weekend as well, and they're expecting a moderate impact on the global chip supply chain. So we'll see. We're going to keep our finger on the pulse there. And I should just clarify, Kevin, for out there, that little factoid, it's not 92% of all semiconductor chips. It's just the really most advanced ones. I think
Mm.
Taiwan makes just under 20% of the world's all the world's semiconductor chips. Just want to make that clarification. But check out our With That Said newsletter. We also included live events, and Kevin, this is pretty cool. We celebrated the 20th anniversary of Oasis Africa, a not-for-profit led by Kim Winter and the gang over at Logistics Executive Group. So we're dropping the link to that in the chat. And then, Kevin, you know this well. Coming up April 29th. How cool is that? So, folks, send in your pictures and your videos of the role that you and your team play in global supply chain. We're dropping a link on how to do that here. And also, big thanks to our sponsor, Vector Global Logistics, for helping us to reinvigorate National Supply Chain Day. Kevin, that should be one of the biggest holidays on the calendar each year, don't you think?
I think so. By looking at the graphic there, it's like they're trying to extend St. Patty's Day, right? So you have to drink the green beer from March 17th all the way through Supply Chain Day.
Hey, Kevin, you're right. That's the challenge, folks. Drink lots of green beer between St. Patrick's Day and National Supply Chain Day. But hey, I love how green kind of reinforces sustainability, right? And it brings some calm to the conversation. I think a lot of work. But y'all check that out.
You change that. I see what you did there.
All right. So let's see here. National Supply Chain Day, again, April 29th, folks. Mark your calendar. And just like I had mentioned a minute ago, Kevin, we have been getting a lot of reaction to your most recent episode of Digital Transformers, featuring, let's see here, Art Seabolt and Altif Brown. Y'all dove in a lot on Web3, blockchain, data security protocols, and a whole heck of a lot more. What was your favorite part of this conversation, Kevin?
Well, to be honest, this was the inaugural edition of the National Digital Foundry Speaker Series that I've been pleased to be associated with over the past six months. And what's really important about that is that they're leading the way in advanced digital ledger technology. They got everybody's heard of blockchain. That's right. just one type of digital ledger technology. And Constellation Network has a completely different kind. It's called direct acyclic graph. And what's the difference between blockchain and DAG, as they call it, is like DAG is serial. Like it's like you have to do one step after another. Whereas DAG, blockchain is serial.
Right.
DAG is parallel, right? So you can do parallel actions similar to the blockchain. So that was really fascinating. And it involves a lot of things that includes reducing the cost of leveraging and using these Web 3.0 technologies.
Okay. Well, Kevin, I need you to write the book and send it to me, How to Do Blockchain and DAG for Dummies. So if you'd write that book and send it to me so I can be a part of the conversations like that, that'd be great.
All right. Will do. I'll put that on my list.
Okay.
That's the first thing on my list.
That's right.
Today.
We're going to have a long list today, Kevin. So folks, check out this latest Digital Transformers episode, which kicks off, as Kevin mentioned, the National Digital Foundry Speaker Series. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. And I think we're also dropping the link in the chat to all these resources. Okay, Kevin, before we dive into our first episode here, a few other folks I want to shout out to. Nadeem is in Saudi Arabia. So great to have you again with us. Jared McAdoo from Pittsburgh, PA. You ever been to Pittsburgh?
All right. Yes, I drove there at night one time. It was scary because there's so many mountains around Pittsburgh, just getting into the city.
Man, we'll have to unpack that story after.
Beautiful city, though. Beautiful city.
Saul Gerardo, good morning from Ames, Iowa via LinkedIn. Great to see you here, Saul. I appreciate that. Hey, Leah Luton, how you doing, Mom? Love you. Says, hello, Buzz folks, and Kevin L. Jackson. Leah Luton.
Thank you, Leah.
The pride of Aiken, South Kakalaki. And hey, Casey says, Altif, who was on that last episode, is just an absolute awesome human being HGTP is transformative. Kevin, looks like
Yes.
one of your fans, one of your audience members showed up.
Yeah, HTTP. That's the protocol that's used in DAG. So
Okay.
you gotta listen in to you know get in line, learn all this good Web3 stuff.
Casey hails from Lake Martin, Alabama. So great to have you here, Casey. Glorimar's back with us. Good morning from Los Angeles. No 0900 meeting for me today. So here I am. Love that, Glorimar. And finally, Gino Pledger from North Alabama. Great to see you, Gino. I love that new headshot, by the way, if I hadn't told you. It was great to see you at Modex a month or so ago. Okay, Kevin.
We got a crowd here today
We
from
do.
everywhere.
So all those folks we just went through, I'd love to get your take on a couple of these articles, as well as, again, Anton Karnaukhov with XpertMinds joining us here in about 13, 14 minutes. So stick around, and we'd love to get y'all's take on what we're talking about. So speaking of, we got to get to work. We got our first story here today. I'm going to pop this graphic up, Kevin. This was an interesting one. So this interview from our friends at Medium, where they talk with Alan Brown, VP of Supply Chain Transformation over at Jabil, and they're really dialing it in on how artificial intelligence is not only disrupting global supply chain, which we all know, but he weighs in on just what the heck we can do about it. So, Kevin, tell us more. What are your key takeaways from this session?
Well, one thing everybody needs to recognize that artificial intelligence is no longer the future. It is today.
Right.
It's reshaping landscapes. It's altering industries, and it's transforming how we live and work. Okay, just today, GPT Chat announced that you no longer need to create an account in order to use that service. This is their way of making AI available to everyone. And this transformational artificial intelligence is creating major changes in how organizations handle disruption or change, especially within logistics. These tools can help people gain end-to-end visibility into the supply chain, especially if there is a disruption. They can optimize routes and for cost and time savings and to reduce any ripple effect of the external global events that pose risk to delivery. Every day it seems there's something new happening in the world. And generative AI is really helping managers anticipate and use huge amounts of data that's
Right.
collected by all these sensors. And GPT Chat is one of the tools that they're using. They're taking this data, putting it into GPT Chat, and then it's coming out in a usable form, right? Something that it's humans can understand and take real action on. So it's changing the reports to give you that actionable insight immediately.
Yeah. A lot of good stuff there. It was an interesting interview. So y'all check that out. We're going to drop the link there in the chat. Hey, two quick follow-up points to what you're sharing, Kevin. I'll get you to react to this.
Mhm.
I'm going to share both of these and then you can comment. First off, I was reading over the weekend that Google, for the first time in their search engine history, about 25 years, is considering adding a charge for users that want to use the higher end AI powered search as Google continues to kind of figure out how they want to compete against ChatGPT that you mentioned. So I found that to be interesting. And then back to this interview with Alan Brown here.
Yeah.
I loved this quote that was about halfway through it. He says, quote, "If you don't have a uniform approach for data governance and management across your supply chain organization, or ideally your entire business, AI tools won't be your saving grace," end quote. Kevin, react to either one
Yeah.
of those points.
Well, on the Google thing, they better, take a second look at that because it looks like GPT Chat has recognized that. That's why their service is already free, and now they're saying, okay, everybody just take it. I mean, you can. Google has a problem there.
Right.
and Microsoft too. And with respect to AI in general, it's not just for it's not just for work. It's also for your personal life. It helps you understand take a much broader view of the world, and it's becoming critical in order to understand how all of these things in your life link together.
Yep.
So don't be afraid of this new tool that you can use at work and to enrich in your own life.
That's right. Don't be scared, folks. Don't be scared. Hey, Kevin, can you imagine? Can you imagine back in your days working on projects at NASA, sending satellites to the furthest
Mhm.
reaches of the solar system? Imagine if y'all had AI back in that day. Could you? Have you ever thought about that for a second?
We'd already, be traveling at light speed if we if we
Right.
had AI back then. I mean, we
Oh,
wouldn't have just gone to the moon and just left it alone. I mean, it took us 50 years to get back. That's
I know.
horrible.
Well, I tell you, you and I could talk for hours about this, but I'm really interested in this next phase of space exploration here, and
Yeah.
of course, we're going to have some great space supply chain related shows coming up with digital transformers. So, folks, y'all stay tuned. Hey, look here, Nadeem, high praise here. I want to be a moderator like Scott Luton one day. Love you, man.
Me too. Me too. I'm an apprentice here trying to learn from Scott.
Well, Nadine, high praise. Great to have you weigh in on what you're seeing out there. All right. So we got to get quickly to this next story here, Kevin. Let me unpack this a bit. So, did you know we've got a birthday to celebrate, Kevin? Did you know that mainframe computing technology turned 60 years old over the weekend? And somewhere there was a parade, undoubtedly. So
Yes.
interesting, interesting read here via our friends over at CIO Dive. Now, despite cloud technology rising to prominence, of course, Kevin was one of those that wrote the book on cloud technology, but still many industries still lean heavily on mainframe computing, such as the financial industry. According to
Hmm.
IBM, more than 3/4 of the top 100 banks are mainframe users. Now, other industries that tend, y'all take note of this, tend, I'm not talking in absolute terms out there, but tend to lean on mainframe computing more so than others: business services, transportation, construction, and manufacturing. Now, did you know mainframe computers, back to financial space, handle majority of the 150 million credit card transactions that take place every day worldwide? 150 million
Wow.
credit card transactions. Now, Kevin, uh, I think I have dove deep into root cause, and Amanda Luton is responsible for about 47% of those, according to my research. But like many aspects, back to the story, many aspects of global business, the talent pipeline is a big concern in the mainframe space. Forrester says that's been the case for over 2 decades. However, many say the talent gap continues to deepen despite several initiatives out in the industry that are trying to help to some degree. Kevin, your thoughts here when it comes to mainframe computing?
The rumor that mainframes are gone is false. All
Mm,
right. That's a fact check. Mainframes handle like 68% of the world's production IT workload, right? Um, and there's like uh, an IBM Z16 system has like 40 terabytes of memory. How many times have you been working, your laptop sort of freezes up because it runs out of memory? You never get that with a mainframe.
mm,
Um, and a the revenue for you IBM and IBM Z system, their revenue actually spiked year over year in 2022. So
yeah.
people are still buying mainframes, many from the government. So mainframe is not going away anytime soon. So happy birthday, mainframe.
So it is fascinating to think about things. I think many folks out there, especially early adopters to the cloud, may not think about just how much business, to your point, Kevin, that mainframe computing still powers today,
Yeah.
especially as we talked about in the financial industry. So, folks, check out this read in CIO Dive and let us know your thoughts there. All right, Kevin, we're about to bring on our guest here in just a second. But before I do, Jordan is tuned in from Denton, Texas via LinkedIn. I wonder where Denton, Texas is, Kevin. You ever heard of
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. No, I haven't, but I wonder if it's near San Antonio. I go there quite a bit.
Okay. Well, Jordan, let us know where
Yeah.
in the big state of Texas Denton is. And Nadeem says
So,
Chat GPT is great. But Nadeem says at the same time, it's spoiling our kids too, as this limits their efforts to learn their writing skills. What's our thoughts there? He's asking Nadeem. Kevin, what do you think about that?
well, you said that, they said the same thing about Google, said the same thing about television. They said the same thing about radio. Whenever there's a new technology, everybody says, oh, I'm worried because my kids won't learn the same way that I did.
Right.
Well, that's true. They won't learn the same way you did. But think about all the new things they can learn because they don't have to worry about like writing cursive.
Right. Yeah, that diagramming sentences. I remember some of the learning cursive and
Yeah.
diagramming sentences. Back in the day. But I like your answer there, Kevin. I wonder what it will free up our time to use our creative gifts doing and figuring out and learning and you name it. Good stuff there. Shashi's tuned in via LinkedIn from the UAE. I think that sometimes when folks insert a flag, it kind of
Yeah.
converts it over to an acronym. But Shashi, regardless, great to have you here via LinkedIn. Let us know
Uh,
what you think.
yeah, I love the UAE. That's a great place.
Oh man, Enrique Alvarez.
Beautiful.
It is, and the business environment and the innovation and the scale of things. I mean, I've heard some really cool things going. Of course, our space program, Kevin,
Yes.
had a big 2023 with the UAE's leap ahead in their space program. So a lot of good stuff. Okay, so Kevin, are you ready? I'm going to introduce our guests. Are you ready to go?
I don't know if I can handle this.
Well, we're
Another
not going
expert mind in the studio.
we're not going to tempt fate or perfect law. So we hope you're with us throughout the rest of the session. But folks, before I introduce the guest, I want to point out for all those resources and articles, like the last one here, when we talk about the mainframe turning 60, we've dropped those links in the chat comments, so you're one click away from reading in and forming your own opinion, not just what me and Kevin share here today. We try to make it convenient for folks. Okay, Kevin, great guest joining us here today on The Buzz. He is certainly, absolutely a digital transformer. He's helping other organizations do just that. In fact,
Yes.
our guest brings 20 years of experience to the table where he's led countless successful SAP implementations, and amongst other things. Now, in particular, our guest is quite the expert on SAP Transportation Management and SAP Business Network for Logistics. Please join me in welcoming Anton Karnaukhov, co-founder and vice president of application delivery with XpertMinds. Hey, Anton, how you doing?
Hey, Scott. Hey, Kevin. Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey.
Great to have you back. We thoroughly enjoyed our webinar from a few weeks back. In fact, we're going to drop a link to that webinar in the comments for folks who want to check it out on an on-demand basis. Now, Kevin,
Yeah.
we've had quite the wide-ranging technology conversation thus far. Are you ready to move on? We got a little fun warm-up question we're going to pose to Anton in just a second. Are you ready to go, Kevin?
Well, actually, I just wanted to mention it. Last year, I spent a lot. I went to SAP Sapphire and did a lot of with the S4 HANA and learned so much about the power of SAP. So I'm ready to learn more from Anton. I opened up a little spot in my head, my brain right here.
I bet Anton was down there. We'll see. But speaking of places to go, Anton, before we get into the conversation and talk a lot more technology, Minneapolis, you live up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. wonderful town, growing town. I spent some time in just a month or so ago. What is one thing that folks just got to check out when they visit Minneapolis, Anton?
Yeah, we've moved here about 2 years ago, so we're still making our way through all the great places. Love the town, love the city. I'd say if you're a sports fan, you can't go wrong, right? Every major league team for every sport is here, so whatever
Right.
is your cup of tea, it's great. But probably the thing that I was most surprised about was the Minnesota State Fair. I am not a state fair kind of
Oh,
guy. I've been to state fairs in other places, and I generally avoid them. But the Minnesota State Fair is the real deal. The food is unbelievable, even though the crowds are, there are a lot of people, but it's worth it. So I'd say check that out. I think it's a good one.
I love that. Kevin, you ever been to Minneapolis?
yes, I've been to Minneapolis, and it's a beautiful city when the sun is out in the summer. I've been there. I've been there in the winter too. I mean, it's one of the few places where they have tunnels between buildings so you can stay out of the snow.
Stay warm. Well, speaking of which, Hell's Kitchen is a local restaurant, and we're not talking about Gordon Ramsay's chain, but a local restaurant up in Minneapolis that I enjoyed eating with Dan a few weeks back. And also, Anton, the what's the burger with cheese in the middle? I can't remember what they call it there in Minneapolis.
Hmm.
Gosh,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but it's escaping my mind as well. Yeah, there's a lot of great burger places here, and I think my burgers are kind of burger go-to spot nowadays. I still miss. We moved from California, and I am, I will trade any burger place for an In-N-Out any day of the week. It's
You like that in and
so
out, yeah.
can't beat In-N-Out. That it's still, we go back to California. That's the first place we go to, which is kind of sad, you'd think, but it's it's definitely special for us.
all right. Well, y'all are making me starving. Thank you so much, Anton. It's gonna be a burger dinner tonight. We're gonna have to. I wish there was an In-N-Out near our neck of the woods, but I'll save that for another show, Anton and Kevin. So I want to get to work here. So I want to start. We've got an interesting article that I want to unpack a bit and then get both Anton and Kevin to react to. So I'm going to pop up this graphic here. This comes to us from our friends at Logistics Management. What generative AI means for supply chain work. So I want to start with this number. Research from Accenture says that 58% of supply chain processes will be automated or augmented by Gen AI. Now that sounds a little bit low to me, but I digress. Now some of the areas included in this number: designing and engineering, sourcing and procurement, production, fulfillment, and planning. According to a recent survey of over 800 supply chain practitioners, Gartner reports that top supply chain organizations are using AI to optimize processes at more than twice the rate of their lower performing peers. So if you're not, that's suggesting if you're not already using AI with real results, you're truly falling further and further behind. So Anton, your thoughts though on what Gen AI mean for supply chain work?
Yeah, Scott. So they focused on generative AI, which, it's important to highlight. It's less about predicting or forecasting, and that's more about creating or generating, new versions of something that's been done before or something similar. So there are certainly areas they highlight that I think are no-brainer scenarios, such as, contract creation, export, import documentation, all these kind of mundane tasks that we do over and over again in the business, where AI can really speed them up. But the one that really, I think, drew my attention more was around design and product design. Because I'll give you an example. We have one customer that is a glass container manufacturer, glass bottles and things like that. And back in the day, in order for them to introduce a brand new color for their glass containers, took years just to make sure that it doesn't jeopardize the structural integrity of the product, that it's a good match for the customers, for the color and how the product looks inside the container. Then they built a mini plant in one of their facilities, and they were able to speed it up to several months. But I wonder with things like generative AI, whether they could introduce it into their flow for product design, if that could even speed it up even further and come up with ideas on what can be done that they maybe haven't thought of. So I think certainly that's an area where it can introduce some new possibilities. The one thing that I always find interesting about, because of course, like Scott, you were talking about earlier, don't be scared of AI,
Right.
but
Yeah.
a lot of people are, and I think in industries where you see some union workers, for example, we should expect, and I think we will see negotiations where they write it into the contracts that some what they believe are defenses against AI taking over their jobs. I mean, we saw that with the writers in Hollywood and how those negotiations went. So that's something that companies need to be prepared for. That, yeah, you certainly will see these gains in performance and productivity, but be prepared for your contract negotiations for your workforce and your labor to try to fight against it and support that.
That's a great call out, Anton. A great call out. Before I move to Kevin, anything else you want to add, Anton?
No, I think those are the main things that I took away from that article.
So Kevin, weigh in there. Anton really laid a lot of things on the table there. Your thoughts, Kevin?
Well, I think, like you said, don't be scared of AI, but these labor groups and unions, I think they should put their efforts maybe in another direction. Don't try to protect your existing job. Plan for the next jobs, the jobs of the future. As you negotiate, why don't you think about retraining your members so that they can use AI to do the mundane tasks that they don't want to do, so that they can focus their brain power and their intelligence and their history to create new workflows or to create new products or to create new jobs. I mean, one of the most important jobs today is prompt engineer, right?
Right.
What do you ask the AI about in order to get the answer that you need? I see very similar transformations in existing manual labor jobs.
Yeah. I would just add creating new value. You mentioned a lot of different things where you can free up the human factor to create new things, creating new value for customers, potential customers, suppliers, the team, right? The current workforce. I think that opens up a whole new realm of possibilities. A lot of good stuff here. Let's see here. Shashi says digitization or transformation can indeed enhance efficiency, but current disruptions can also wreak havoc on the supply chain with ongoing geopolitical tensions, Baltimore, Taiwan, earthquake. Great points there, Shashi. Great points.
Yeah, he mentioned Baltimore. Did you, I guess earlier today or late yesterday, a ship lost power near the Verrazano Narrows Bridge up in New York.
Right.
And they had to drop anchor to keep from hitting a bridge, just like what they did in Baltimore. I mean, the port is shut down, one of the largest ports in the country. Now, I did a lot to a lot of supply chains, I'm sure.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I think a lot of folks are still trying to figure out exactly how to work around that major disruption and see where else their global supply chains are being impacted by that and many other disruptions that Shashi lays out there too. Okay. So Anton, given this age of constant change, new technologies, seems like by the day, sometimes by the hour, I really want to pick your brain here today and get you to share some proven, been there, done that tips with our audience, especially when it comes to implementation. Our last webinar, Anton, we spoke a lot about the implementation of new technology in global supply chain, especially from that transportation and logistics standpoint. You've got tons and tons of, you got experience by the truckload there. So Anton, 3 tips. What are 3 tips that you'd like to offer, especially supply chain leaders out there that are implementing new technologies within their business?
Yes, Scott, I think I would probably put as number 1 is you do have to prioritize migrating to the cloud. I know it's something we've heard before for many years, but what we're seeing as kind of a new trend is, in addition to the technology pressure, right, to move from on-prem to the cloud, now what we're seeing from all the major software providers is the licensing pressure. That wasn't the case 3-4 years ago. So again, speaking maybe for SAP and Oracle, customers are now in a position where buying any on-premise licensing is pretty much cost prohibitive. Even if they're there, but you're going to have to spend so much money, it doesn't make any sense. So the software providers are forcing people to move onto the cloud for licensing structure. And again, it's only getting harder and more difficult to navigate those waters. So the sooner you get ahead of the curve and just even if it's just portions of your solutions, let's say you focus on supply chain, get those to the cloud as much as you can, you're just going to be in a better position to execute in the future. Another example would be, SAP announced that any of their AI advancements and new features that they're going to be developing will only be available to customers that are in the cloud and not on-prem. So that already created quite a ripple effect through a lot of different customers. Like, wait a second, what about us? We also want this new stuff. So, but that's just the reality of the market and the scenario of the situation we're in. So I think number one is prioritize cloud migration. Number two, from an implementation perspective, this is not new, but some people still don't learn their lessons, is don't try to implement everything at once, right? Mm-hmm. Try to use a phased approach as much as possible. So when we're talking about transportation, maybe you start with a specific mode of transport. You focus on ocean or road, and then do other modes later. Or maybe, segmented by geography. But trying to do everything at once, even though I know people feel like, oh, right now I have an opportunity to do it, let's do it all at once, because then I won't have an opportunity, is generally not a good strategy. Too much risk, too much to absorb, too much to kind of get through. And maybe, final thought is, again, a theme that we've seen in the software development world for many years, which is agile implementations. But in software implementation world, it's still something that people are learning how to do properly. And I would just kind of at a high level summarize that you want to really minimize kind of the upfront formal requirements gathering blueprinting. That's generally a waste of time to do it to the degree that people have done it historically. And you want to keep it, what we try to do is keep it fairly informal, get to the 80%. If I know 80%, we're ready to go. Let's start building. Let's start putting a solution together and showing it, putting it in front of people, getting feedback on whether it's working or not working. And that's really the only way to get the necessary feedback to know if you're doing the right thing, rather than trying to write it on a piece of paper and, and sign it in blood before you start any work. So minimize the kind of formal blueprinting, do it as quickly as informally as you can, and get into the build phase, and then iterate on building and feedback, and you just end up with much better results in the end. So those would be the three things from an implementation perspective I think I would focus on.
I appreciate that. And folks, as you might expect, Kevin, before I go to you and get your take on those three things or other things, we can't cover everything in 5 minutes time. Anton, as I mentioned, has done this countless times. So I bet Anton will welcome a conversation around implementation, best practices, and a whole lot more. Kevin, let's see here. His 3 tips, if I got them right. Prioritizing going to the cloud. Don't do everything at once. And then minimize that formal blueprinting so you can get into the build. He talked about agile implementation there. Kevin, your thoughts on those 3 or some of your own best practices given all your work in this space?
Well, I'm going to double tap on going to the cloud. Okay, I'm a cloud guy, but that's not really why. It's you can't implement a lot of these advanced capabilities and technologies in an on-prem installation. You have to do it in the cloud because of the flexibility, because of the scalability, and the ability to assign resources, scale up, and more importantly, scale down. You can't do this on premise. It costs you way too much money to do that.
Right.
So if you're going to be competitive, no matter what industry you're in, you must go into the cloud. And on the other 2 points, it's all about continuous change. I mean, Anton was talking about the waterfall design method of software, where you make sure you get all the requirements in place and that's what you're going to build, and you can't change the requirements once you start designing the software. That's a guarantee that when you're finished, what you've built is going to be worthless. So don't do that. You have to, whatever you design, whatever you build, whatever you implement, whatever you deploy, it has to be built for change, has to be built for continuous change. You don't know what's happening in the next hour, let alone the next year. So Anton is right on
Yep.
with all of those points.
Anton, any additional thoughts there on that last big point Kevin was making? About investing into a system, a technology, a platform, an organization that can withstand this constant barrage of change. Any thoughts there, Anton?
Yeah, it's always a dilemma we've had to face as an implementation partner, because you get with a customer, what the customer wants is predictability of cost, right? And so
Mm,
that's the reason they're pushing for that upfront detailed requirements gathering, because they then believe that they have less variability to what happens. That is not the reality. So it's an illusion that by blueprinting it to death, you're going to end up with less change. In fact, you
yeah,
typically end up with more change to what you're building. And so, but yes, part of what we talk about a lot of the times is, instead of trying to avoid change, you embrace it. It doesn't mean you do everything. It doesn't mean you have endless budgets. It just means you constantly have to reprioritize and figure out what's important, right? You have that conversation, you have that dialogue. What was important to you yesterday might no longer be important today. Great. I'd rather know it now so I can drop it out of the list I'm working on and focus on
yeah.
the new things that are important. So yeah, I think full alignment there.
Good stuff, Anton. I wish we had a few more hours, but with you and Kevin, it's quite the 1-2 technology and supply chain power punch here. Speaking of punches, really quick, we got a new Mike Tyson fight coming up soon. Kevin and Anton, I want to say it's in June or July. That is fascinating to me. Growing up, we were talking about the '80s a bit in the green room, and man, Mike Tyson in the mid and late '80s, early '90s. That was the event you had to watch his matches.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
be interesting to see how that fight with, I can't remember the guy he's fighting. Interesting
Much
to see how
younger
that.
guy, much younger
Yeah.
guy. Let's put it
Yes,
this way. Yeah.
Anton. That's
Yeah.
right. So we'll see. All right, Kevin and Anton, we're gonna keep driving here. I gotta Anton, on the webinar we talked more, and again we'll drop the link to the on-demand version webinar here in a second. But we spoke a lot about some of the cool things Expert Minds, you and your organization are doing out in the industry, especially helping organizations optimize SAP, leading to big
Mm.
wins for the business and their people. So, Anton, what's one of your favorite things that you're doing at Expert Minds?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And just for viewers out there, just as a quick reminder, Expert Minds is a implementation partner for SAP, and we especially focus on the logistics solutions. So as you mentioned, transportation management and business network for logistics. And it's always fun to work with the latest technology. We're most of the folks on our team are delivery people. We love to work with the technology and build solutions, and that's always fun. But I must say that one of the coolest things to see for us is, once the project is done, how
Mm.
quickly the customer is able to take ownership and just be on their own. And a lot of that has to do with that agile implementation we talked about, because they were part of the process way up front, seeing the software way up front and feeling like they had direct input into how it worked. By the time we're ready to go live and we turn everything on, it really doesn't take a whole lot of time for us to be around just from a support perspective. And then seeing the customers use the system on their own, owning it, treating it like their own, like something they designed,
Yeah.
it's their baby, is always something we take great pride in, and it's an awesome experience to be part of that.
I bet so. Kevin, what I heard there is being able to really practically, successfully, and sustainably passing that baton, which has got to be really rewarding in y'all's line of work. Kevin, your thoughts there?
Well, Anton sounds like a trusted advisor, right? That's what you need when you're doing these types of implementation. Someone who can discuss the issues, discuss not only what you need today, but what you will need tomorrow. And someone who can give you the good, the bad, and the ugly with respect to what the customer wants. most people only know what they know. But when you're working with an organization like Expert Minds, who's done this, been there,
Right.
done that, with many other customers across many other industries, they know more. So leverage it. Okay,
Love it.
leverage it.
I thought you were going to go with the Sherpa route. We had such a great live stream last week with our
Last
friends
week,
at
yeah,
Bastion. Going back to something you said there, Kevin, if your implementer is only giving you good news, you better start asking some different questions. Is my hunch.
yes,
Anton,
yes.
would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's, at the end of the day, we don't try to sugarcoat it too much. Projects are hard. All of these
Right.
projects are difficult. Just try to make it less difficult, for yourself, because there's always an opportunity to make it more difficult. But yes, it's always a challenge. It's a big change for a lot of people, and this technology doesn't always work like clockwork. There's, all these software companies, they constantly develop new functionality, which means they develop new bugs and new things that break down. So you always live in this world where it's a moving target to some extent. So yeah, we always feel that finding a partner you can trust to have these honest discussions is really important.
Yeah.
So it's less about trying to minimize risk through paperwork and, I don't know, fixed bids and things like that. It's really more about finding a trusted partner that you can have an honest conversation and iterate and react to changes, knowing that they're not going to take advantage of you, but rather really work with you to be successful. So I think that's the key.
Love that, Anton. Love that. And as promised, folks, we'll drop the link to that webinar with Expert Minds and Descartes, one click away from checking out that neat conversation we had. And hey, Nadeem, we're reading your mind. He says, supply chain, thanks. He was about to ask about that link. Hey, predictive live streaming is what we do here, Kevin and Anton. Nadeem, great to have you here today. Anton, a lot of cool stuff. So my final question for you is how folks can connect with you and the organization there at Expert Minds, where SAP done right. I love that. This is from your website. So I want to make sure folks knew that it's Expert Minds with no E on the front end. So Anton, how can folks connect with you and the team?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, so the best place to start is our website, which is expertminds.net. And we've got, a contact form there. We've got a blog post where we try to share our knowledge as much as possible. And there's contact information for the various people that are there. We also participate in most major SAP conferences. So you've mentioned Sapphire, Kevin. So we're going there this year. We're going to be presenting with one of our customers there. It's always a great place to meet with other folks. So please reach out to me, which my contact is there on the website as well, or through our Contact Us page on the website. And we'll gladly meet with you, go through whatever questions you have. Always love to share the information. We're all about sharing the knowledge and the information. So always happy to do that.
Outstanding, Anton. Outstanding. Kevin, in just a second, after we bid Anton adieu, we're going to get one of your patented key takeaways here today. Kevin, you're going to add something really quick?
Yeah. I have one question to ask, one more question to ask. What are you doing for the eclipse? It's about an hour away. We didn't say anything about today's eclipse. This is live, right?
Yeah. I have 2:00 set on my calendar when it's supposed to just get darker. It's already, it's an overcast day, so it's already dark to begin with. But I guess we're gonna get like 60% or something here in Minneapolis. Yes. And my son was telling me that he's got a bunch of kids in his class that are, driving to places that are, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours away, where you're going to get 100% coverage.
Wow.
So it's not that far away.
It's sunny here today, blue skies, no clouds, but we're supposed to get 90% here in DC.
Wow. Okay. It was in my blind spot a little bit, Kevin. So thanks for calling it out. And we'll see where folks are, which is the coolest place to view this once in a lifetime eclipse. We'll see. All right. So by the way, Anton, you've got a couple of great questions and comments. I'm not going to, for the sake of time, we can't have them here, but Shashi, hey, great question. And I know, as Whitney says, great question. Reach out to Anton to discuss how Expert Minds can help. So, Shashi, check it out. Grab a cup of coffee with Anton or Zoom, and y'all have a great discussion. Anton Karnaukhov, co-founder and vice president of application delivery with XpertMinds. Thanks so much, Anton. Really enjoyed today's conversation.
Thank you, Scott and Kevin. Great conversation.
We will see you soon, my friend. Hey, sometimes that swoosh is right on the money, and sometimes ready to go. You know what I mean? Saying, Kevin,
Yeah.
the swoosh is the boss. Kevin, I can't help it.
Power of the swoosh.
So let's see here. Is that maybe Wes Banker? Maybe via YouTube. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
They say nice discussion. Happy Eclipse all. SAP is on my radar now. The banker, Wes Banker. I'm gonna go with that. So I hope that's close. But great to have you here today. And of course, Whitney, big thanks to Whitney over there with Expert Minds, dropping some other links in there. Y'all check out those resources. That's what we're here for. Great job, Whitney and Anton. So Kevin, we covered a lot of ground here today.
Oh yeah.
Think about it. We started with that said and semiconductor chips, that we moved into a great interview about AI disrupting but creating opportunities in global supply chain. We went to mainframe computing and sang happy birthday and had a birthday cake, you name it. We even fit in Mike Tyson with the 1-2 punch. And Anton, we're here today. So out of all of the past hour, what's one of your favorite key takeaways from this discussion we had here today?
Well, I really liked the when Anton was talking about, and I would say this, right? Prioritize the cloud, because you can't move forward in whatever industry you are unless you're leveraging the power of the cloud. And we talked a little bit about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, a lot of the business capabilities that you need to be competitive can only be accomplished if you're on the cloud. So, take that to heart and plan for change as well. If you have an on-premise installation of anything, any change is going to cost you money because you have to buy the hardware. It's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you resources. That's why you need to go in the cloud, because the cloud is designed for change, and change is paramount. Being able to manage change is paramount.
So be bold and fearless like Kevin and Anton. Lean into that change, right? And better yet, and kind of kidding aside, better yet, hey, build your organization and your technology, your platform, your operations, how you do business that are truly more resilient because your people want to succeed. And if you can surround them with tools and technologies and an approach to doing business in a more resilient manner, and I mean that in a real practical way, not a lip service way, Kevin, right? Because to your point, change is constant, right? Change is constant. And one of the ways you do that, we talk about a lot, is picking and choosing the right partner that can have those frank conversations that you and Anton both were talking about. So, hey, Shashi, appreciate this feedback. Great conversation. Plenty of valuable insights to take away. And yes, plan for change and be bold and fearless like one and only Kevin L. Jackson. Kevin, what a great conversation here today, huh?
Absolutely. Planning for change is an important business skill set.
Yeah.
So, this is critical to your future and to your career.
Agreed. Plan for change and be ready to change those plans, undoubtedly, with what comes around the corner. Kevin, how can folks connect with you and Digital Transformers and all the cool things you're doing over there?
No, absolutely. You can always catch Digital Transformers here on Supply Chain Now. We publish the next to last Monday of every month, and the second Monday of the month, we're here on the Buzz.
Hey, find Digital Transformers and Supply Chain Now wherever you get your podcasts. I'm going to wrap with two quick things. First off, make sure you connect with Anton, Expert Minds, have those conversations. I really have enjoyed the conversations here with Anton and the gang. And then secondly, and Kevin, this is totally separate than anything we've talked about here today. But a lot of folks know from all of our work together that, Kevin, you're a veteran of the U.S. Navy, and I'm a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. And coming up this weekend is Pat's Run, and that's been going on 20 years. And if you don't know what we're talking about, it is it honors Pat Tillman, who lost his life in Afghanistan, and former NFLer. Kevin, he turned down a $3.6 million contract with the Arizona Cardinals because he didn't want to walk away from his commitment to serving the country and
that's amazing.
his Army unit. It is. So, folks, they have Pat's Run, which raises money for military families and veterans at a variety of cities across our nation, coast to coast. We're supporting and volunteering at the one near Atlanta. So Google it, check out Pat's Run, find it, the closest Pat's Run near your city. And if you're in position to give, support, volunteer, participate, whatever, hey, do that. The Pat Tillman Foundation does a lot of wonderful work in this regard for our veteran community. Okay, Kevin, what a great show. Thanks for joining me here today, Kevin L. Jackson.
Hey, one thing I want to shout out to Saudi Arabia. We got an invite to come out to Saudi to do a show. We're going to have to follow up on that one.
All right, Nadeem, we're coming to you. We're going to take advantage of your invitation, and we're going to come check out the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia market. So stay tuned there, Nadeem. Hey, thanks for everybody that showed up here today for the Buzz, the April 8th, 2024 edition of the Buzz, the Digital Transformers edition of the Buzz. Kevin, a pleasure as always to co-host with you.
It was fun.
Thanks. It was fun. Big thanks to Anton Karnaukhov and Expert Minds. Big thanks to Catherine and Amanda behind the scenes helping to make it happen. But folks, the onus is now on you. Take one thing, at least one thing that Kevin or Anton shared here today, or some of the great stuff dropped in the comments, put it into action. Deeds, not words. That's what it's all about. And on that note, with that said, Scott Luton, on behalf of the Supply Chain Now team, challenging you to do good, to give forward, and be the change that's needed. And we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.